I was staring at the ultrasound monitor, waiting to hear my baby's heartbeat, when my doctor suddenly ripped the machine off, locked the door, and whispered, "You need to hire a ruthless divorce lawyer before you go home today." I actually laughed out loud. It was a nervous, confused laugh. "What? Why?" I asked, my voice shaking. "We're having a baby. We're so happy. I don't understand." My doctor, a substitute I was seeing because my regular OB was on vacation, was pale as a ghost. Her hands were literally trembling as she held my medical file. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "What I am about to show you is going to destroy everything you think you know about your marriage." To understand how my entire world collapsed in a sterile, fluorescent-lit exam room at 4 months pregnant, you need to understand the absolute illusion my life was built on. My name is Shirley Gillis. I'm 32 years old. I work as a senior marketing director at a boutique tech firm in Boston, and I come from what people in New England politely call old money. 5 years ago, my grandmother passed away and left me her entire estate. We're talking about a $2.5 million trust fund and a historic family manor that has been in the Gillis family for generations. I never flaunted it. I drove a sensible 10-year-old SUV, bought my coffee at the same local diner every morning, and busted my back to build my own career. To me, the inheritance was just a safety net, a quiet security. But to the wrong kind of person, it made me a walking target. I just didn't realize there was a sniper aiming right at my heart. I met Julian 4 years ago at my family's annual charity gala. The Gillis family had hosted it for decades. I was trying to escape some guy who kept asking painfully obvious questions about my net worth when Julian materialized. Tall, charismatic, with this easy, disarming smile. He didn't mention money once. He made fun of the terrible jazz band, asked about my favorite books, and claimed he was just a mid-level financial advisor who got a last-minute invite from a coworker. He swore he had no idea who the Gillis family was. Looking back, that was red flag number 1. A financial advisor who doesn't research the billionaire host family of a high society event? That's like a shark not knowing what blood smells like. But I was so exhausted by gold diggers that his ignorance felt refreshing. We dated for a year. He was the picture-perfect boyfriend, attentive, remembering the smallest details, insisting on paying for dinners even when I could have bought the entire restaurant. My mother, however, saw through his mask in exactly 5 minutes. After meeting him the first time, she pulled me aside and said, "Shirley, that man's smile never quite reaches his eyes. He's studying you, not loving you." I got so defensive. I called her paranoid, jealous, and overprotective. I fought with her so intensely that we eventually stopped speaking. For 2 whole years, the woman who raised me was reduced to a polite text on my birthday. I pushed my own mother out of my life because I chose to believe the man sleeping next to me. Julian and I got married in a beautiful ceremony at my grandmother's estate. He literally cried at the altar. Tears streamed down his face as he vowed to protect me. Knowing what I know now, those tears were tears of pure relief. His long con had finally paid off. We wanted a family right away, but after 2 years of trying naturally, we hit a brick wall. We saw a fertility specialist, and the diagnosis broke my heart. Julian had severe male factor infertility. His sperm count was virtually non-existent. Natural conception was medically impossible. Julian broke down in the car. He sobbed for 20 minutes, apologizing over and over, acting like he had failed me as a man. I held him, kissed his forehead, and told him we would figure it out together. That's what marriage is, right? In sickness and in health. We decided on IVF, specifically a procedure where a single sperm is injected directly into the egg. Julian became obsessed with researching clinics. He found one he insisted was the absolute best, handled all the paperwork, and took charge of the logistics. I thought he was being a supportive, proactive partner. Our first cycle failed. I was so depressed I couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. But Julian held me, whispered sweet promises, and said we'd try again. The second cycle worked. When I saw those 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test, I wept with pure joy. Everything felt perfect. We were picking out nursery colors, throwing around baby names. Then, casually, over dinner one night, Julian mentioned that I should probably update my will. Now that we're starting a family, he said smoothly. He also suggested giving him power of attorney, just in case something went wrong during delivery. Oh, and maybe we should sell my grandmother's historic manor. It was too big anyway, and let him invest the millions into his high-yield portfolios. I told him no. Very gently, but firmly. No. Almost overnight, my sweet, devoted husband vanished. He became cold and distant. He started sleeping on the far edge of the bed, claiming my pregnancy pillows were taking up too much space. He initiated a silent treatment that lasted for days, only breaking it when he wanted me to cook dinner. Worse, his schedule suddenly became erratic. He started taking phone calls outside in the freezing cold. He claimed he was restructuring client portfolios, working until midnight 3 or 4 times a week. I found a receipt in his coat pocket for a $300 dinner for 2 at a trendy downtown restaurant, and another for a hotel room just 40 minutes from our house. When I confronted him, he gaslit me into oblivion. "Surely, you're acting crazy," he told me, shaking his head with this condescending smirk. "It's just the pregnancy hormones. My networking events ran late, and I didn't want to risk falling asleep at the wheel driving home. Don't become one of those paranoid, naggy wives." I actually felt guilty. I apologized to him. That is the terrifying power of a true narcissist. But my gut was screaming at me. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m. to get water and heard him whispering in the kitchen. I stood in the dark hallway and listened. "It's almost time," Julian was saying to someone. "By spring, everything will be triggered. Just need to wait until she gives birth." He heard the floorboard creak, spun around, hung up, and instantly snapped back into his fake persona. "Work emergency, babe. Go back to bed." That brings me back to that fluorescent-lit exam room at 4 months pregnant. Dr. Brennan, the substitute doctor, locked the door, pulled out a thick manila folder, and shattered my reality. "My younger sister is a nurse at the fertility clinic you use," she explained, her voice remarkably steady now. "3 weeks ago, she showed up at my apartment at midnight, having a complete mental breakdown. The guilt was eating her alive. She saw your husband's name on my patient roster today and begged me to tell you the truth before he destroys your life." She opened the folder. Inside was the blueprint of a sociopath. Julian was never infertile. He had paid her sister, a nurse drowning in $80,000 of student loan debt, a $30,000 cash bribe to switch his perfectly healthy sperm sample with a random paid donor sample. He also paid off the clinic's embryologist. Why? Because our prenuptial agreement, a standard ironclad document my family's lawyers drafted, had an infidelity clause. If one spouse cheated, they owed the other a $500,000 penalty and forfeited all rights to shared assets. Julian's master plan was absolute evil genius. He let me carry a baby that wasn't biologically his. He planned to wait until our child was born, fake a sudden suspicion, and demand a DNA test. When the test inevitably proved he wasn't the father, he was going to accuse me of cheating, with the falsified clinic records making it look like our IVF had failed and we had conceived naturally. He would have absolute proof of my infidelity. He was going to trigger the prenup, take $500,000, sue me for emotional distress, destroy my reputation, and legally force me to sell my grandmother's estate to pay him off. He was banking on the fact that as a new mother, publicly humiliated and deeply confused, I would be too mentally broken to fight back. He thought I was a weak, naive little rich girl. He thought he was playing chess while I was playing checkers. But he severely underestimated Shirley Gillis. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. Sitting in that doctor's office, staring at the evidence of my husband's betrayal, a profound, icy calm washed over me. The tears didn't come. Instead, a fire ignited in my soul. If he wanted to play a game of destruction, I was going to show him how a master plays it. I thanked Dr. Brennan, took copies of everything, and drove straight to a private investigator. Her name was Rosalind, an ex-detective with eyes like a hawk. I handed her the folder and said, "Burn his life to the ground. Find every secret he has." It took Rosalind exactly 10 days to uncover the rest of the garbage. Julian wasn't just a con artist, he was a desperate, drowning man. He had $180,000 in underground gambling debts. He owed money to the kind of loan sharks who don't send you letters, they send people to break your legs. To pay for the $30,000 clinic bribes, he had been embezzling money from his own firm's clients for over a year. And the cherry on top, he was sleeping with his 24-year-old assistant. Oh, and Rosalind found out he'd tried this exact same scam 5 years ago with another wealthy woman in Boston, but she caught him stealing from a joint account and quietly dumped him before he could trap her. I had him. I had him dead to rights. I called the one person I needed most, my mother. After 2 years of silence, she picked up on the second ring. When I choked out the words, "Mom, you were right about him," she didn't gloat. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just said, "I'm on my way, sweetheart. We're going to fix this." My mother, a retired state attorney, connected me with the most ruthless fraud prosecutor in the state. We got the nurse and the embryologist to sign sworn confessions in exchange for immunity. We contacted Julian's firm with the embezzlement proof. We even tracked down the poor grad student who was the sperm donor, who had no idea his DNA was being used in a criminal extortion plot. I set the stage for my revenge 6 weeks later. I told Julian I wanted to throw a massive baby moon celebration party at the estate. I invited his parents, his colleagues, our friends, and my family. Julian was thrilled. To him, this was the perfect setup. More witnesses for his eventual performance as the heartbroken, betrayed husband. The day of the party, the gardens were stunning. Champagne was flowing, a string quartet was playing, and Julian was in his element, working the crowd, touching my belly for the cameras, and playing the ultimate loving father-to-be. Around 3 p.m., he clinked his glass to make a toast. This was it, the moment he'd been building up to. He wrapped his arm around me and announced to the crowd, "I love my wife so much. In fact, to celebrate our bond, I ordered one of those DNA kits. We're going to frame the results in the nursery to prove that this baby and I are connected forever." The crowd awed. His mother teared up. I smiled, stepped up to the microphone, and said, "That is a beautiful idea, Julian. In fact, I brought some test results of my own to share today." I reached under the podium and pulled out a thick binder. Julian's smile faltered. "3 months ago," I said, my voice echoing clearly over the silent lawn, "I learned that my husband paid a fertility clinic $45,000 in bribes to switch his sperm with a random donor." The crowd gasped. Julian turned white as a sheet. He dropped his champagne glass. It shattered on the stone patio. "His plan," I continued, making direct eye contact with his horrified parents, "was to wait until birth, take that DNA test he just mentioned, and frame me for cheating to trigger a $500,000 penalty in our prenup." "Surely, you're crazy," Julian stammered, sweating profusely. "It's the pregnancy hormones. She's having a mental break." "Am I?" I asked coldly. From the edge of the crowd, the nurse from the clinic stepped forward. She said, "I'm the nurse he bribed." Next to her, the young grad student raised his hand, "And I'm the donor he illegally paid." Julian couldn't speak. He looked like a trapped rat. "But wait, there's more," I said into the mic. To pay for these bribes, Julian embezzled over $50,000 from his clients. Oh, and he's currently $180,000 in debt to illegal gambling rings. And he's been sleeping with his assistant for 8 months. I looked at his boss, who was standing near the bar. His boss simply nodded at me, pulled out his phone, and stepped away. Right on cue, 2 police officers walked out from my guest house. They marched straight across the manicured lawn, grabbed Julian by the arms, and read him his Miranda rights in front of 50 people. Fraud, conspiracy, embezzlement. They handcuffed him right there. His mother collapsed into a chair, sobbing. His father turned his back in absolute disgust. Julian looked back at me as they dragged him to the cruiser. tears streaming down his face. "Shirley, please, I love you. Think of our family." "I am thinking of my family," I replied softly, stepping back into the arms of my mother, who held me tightly. Julian was denied bail because of his massive debts to dangerous people. His assistant fled the state. His firm fired him and sued him into oblivion. He is currently serving a 7-year sentence in a state penitentiary with zero access to a single dime of my money. My baby was born 4 months later, healthy, beautiful, and completely innocent of the chaos that surrounded her conception. Some people asked if I was devastated that the baby wasn't biologically Julian's. Honestly, it was the greatest gift he could have ever given me. My child has 0% of his narcissistic, toxic DNA. She is entirely mine. Listen to me closely. True family is not about blood, or DNA tests, or legal contracts. Family is about the people who show up for you when you are standing in the ashes of your life. It's about the mother who drops everything to fight for you even after you pushed her away. It's about having the self-respect to realize that you are never trapped. If someone tries to manipulate your kindness and burn your world down, don't panic. Let them light the match. Then, use that fire to forge your own sword. Turn around and absolutely decimate them with the truth. Karma isn't just a force of the universe. Sometimes karma requires a little bit of paperwork, a good private investigator, and a microphone at a garden party. Stay strong, know your worth, and never let anyone make you the victim of your own story.